Welcome to the One Player Podcast, the show on solitaire board games. I'm Albert, and this is episode 391.
E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home.
I was thinking about that movie this morning, Julius, amazingly.
I have come up with the same idea then.
I guess so. I only watched the movie for the first time 10 years ago. I never saw it growing up, even though, I was of the right age. Yeah, so today we are talking about a game I'm excited about, a game called S.E.T.I, which you're searching for extraterrestrials. I guess it's the prequel to E.T., because here you're discovering the alien, and the alien has been discovered in the movie, right? So maybe,
I think it has nothing to do
maybe
with E.T., but Albert, the truth is out there.
you're there. You go. Okay, well, in that case, we should uh reveal the truth. But before we do that, we have a contest to resolve. So I'm giving away a copy of Pandemic because we talked about Pandemic: The Lord of the Rings.
And because
Yay!
Albert had a random copy of Pandemic.
And because I had a random copy of Pandemic in front of the thrift store, it may or may not have been complete, but it turned out it was. So, Julius, are you ready to roll the die and see who wins?
Sure. Roll the one.
Wow, okay. Then we have a winner. We have a winner. Let me read the entry. It is from John Retzer. Um, he's a big fan of Pandemic System and perhaps weirdly likes Iberia and Fall of Rome the most. So the Pandemic Iberia version in Spain and the Fall of Rome. Both of those are fun. I like Iberia a lot too. And Fall of Rome, I played it a couple times, only once, but I liked it. And Lord of the Rings is sort of based on that one because of the dice. Anyway, he likes Fall of Rome for the theme and Iberia for the mechanisms. And Iberia almost doesn't feel like Pandemic to him, but more like a railroad game. Our discussion of the Lord of the Rings version made him think that he should play it sooner rather than later. He's a big fan of the Lord of the Rings. He's read it every year since he was in junior high, about 50 years ago. Every year.
So,
That's a lot.
so he's basically getting this copy of Pandemic just to upgrade to the Lord of the Rings version of Pandemic.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
To warm up into. Well, he's already played. He's already played other ones, so he's going to get to try this one. So congratulations, John. I will reach out to you to get your address to send it to you.
Well, there you go.
Yep, there we go. Okay, now we're going to talk about SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. This is a game by CGE, Chex Games Editions, and it came out, I believe, last year, maybe the year before.
Last year.
Last year, okay. It's a nice, pretty game, pretty box, big box with a picture of satellites pointing out into space. I assume it's the satellite array out in like Nevada or somewhere out there. I forget what state it is in.
I have no idea.
The very large array, the VLA, which I am excited about because I was there. I got to go see that place when I moved from San Francisco to Greenville. We were driving on I-40 and we got hit by a huge blizzard, and it's in New Mexico, and that we spent the night in some small town in Gallup, Texas. And then the next morning we got back on the road, and when we hit Albuquerque, we found out that the interstate was closed from there forward. So we made a right at Albuquerque, headed south to the border, basically to Texas. And on the way there, we were driving on the highway, and we passed a sign that says VLA this way. So we got off the highway and checked it out. It's just super cool. Satellite array in the middle of the desert, up in the mountains, and just nothing there, but super cool. There's a gift shop though and stuff like that. But anyway, it's kind of beside the point. But that it's part of what made me excited about the game in the first place. Is that super cool cover? So where do we start?
Well, let's start off with summarizing the game, as we are usual to do.
Okay. Yeah, no, I lost my little sheet of notes that says what are the things we cover each episode. One of my cats must have knocked it down off my desk. Fortunately, I have it in my notebook. But as Julie said, we're talking about a summary. So this is a game, as I said, about exploring and trying to find extraterrestrial. You're doing this by doing science. You're doing it by using radio telescopy, using the VLA and other things like that. You're doing research, sending probes out into space and the different planets and gathering data and analyzing your data to identify possible alien life forms and discover them. You actually discover aliens in this game. and all along the way gathering many, many victory points. That's basically, there you go. That's the game
That's a
summary of
good
the game.
summary of it.
Thank you. Components then, right? That'll be next.
Sure. Let's jump into it.
Okay. There's a lot of
This is
components in
this
this
is the more
box.
exciting part.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot. I don't think I want to go over all the components. So let me talk about the most.
Oh,
There's a lot. There's a lot. So I'm
there's
going
a
to talk
couple
about.
things in here that I definitely want to talk about. But let's see if we hit the
Okay.
same things.
Okay. So first up is the multi-part board. It's a pretty big board. It doesn't fit in the box easily, so it comes in three separate sections that you put together. Two of them are puzzle pieces. The third isn't. I don't know why they did it that way.
Because it can be reoriented so that you can theoretically have it be at a right angle. I find that actually more convenient for solo play to put it at a right angle in a corner of the table rather than it
Really?
going across the middle.
I'd never tried that, but okay, that's a good idea. It does. I can't imagine it quite fits at a right angle as it's designed, but you could definitely make more space. That's a great idea. I'm gonna have to try that.
Maybe it's 30%. I don't know, but it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
straight when I'm playing solo.
yep. Oh, that's so smart. I wish I'd thought of that. Okay, so there's the board. It comes in three segments. You put them together. On top of the board, and yeah, on top of the board, then there's a ring of four pieces. There are four sector pieces, and you'll lay that over the board. The center section of the board, I should say, is round, and it's going to represent the solar system. This ring is going to go around the solar system. It's four segments on purpose because each time you play, you're going to randomize them and arrange them in a different order.
And there's a little app that you can scan from the rule book. And it's not even an app, it's just a website, but it pulls open the website and it gives you a
Yep.
random setup. Good fun. Looks pretty.
Yeah. I found the app a little, honestly, a little confusing to use because it didn't seem to lay it out in the same way I was looking at it. But, whatever, it randomizes it for you.
I don't have any such issues.
Yeah. I always have issues with stuff. Especially technology.
I'll
It
be honest,
randomizes the
technology
ring
is hard for him.
and the solar system, right? The next part is the solar system itself. There's three rings that represent the solar system. They're going to be stacked on top of each other. They're layers. The lower, bigger layer has the outer planets. The middle layer has the central planets, and the upper layer has the inner planets. And those three layers are going to be stacked on top of each other. And throughout the game, they will spin around the sun. There's also a plastic sun that fits in the middle of the board. There's a hole for it, and it's a 3D sun, so it's not a full sphere; it's a half sphere. It fits in there, and then these three rings lay around that, and they hold it in place, and then they spin around the sun, so the planets are actually rotating around the sun. I think it's super cool because as you play the game, what ends up happening is the inner planets actually rotate more quickly than the outer planets. Mechanically and thematically, it's just perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. Then there's okay. So that was the first component, the giant board in many pieces. The the other part about the board is it also has a place to slot in the two alien tiles you're gonna have. You're gonna play with 2 out of 5 each game, and they start face down, so you don't even know which aliens you're gonna discover. There are 5 different types of aliens, right? So it could be anything, and they each work differently. Anyway, the next component would be the cards. There's a ton of cards. It's a deck of cards. There's other cards besides that deck, especially for solo. We'll talk more about those. But these cards are multi-use cards. You use them throughout the game in 3 different ways. You could play them for their effect on the card. They generally have a cost. You pay the cost, and then you can play it. You could use them as a resource. Every card in the top left corner has a resource. You could just discard it and gain that resource. Or you could use it as income. Every round, you're gonna get to play a card. You're gonna slot it under your main card that tells you like your turn summary and what you have, sort of. And that's another resource you'll get each round going forward if you put the card there. There's other things that will also let you put tuck cards like that for resources. So if you get those, you'll be getting lots of resources every turn, which is handy in this game.
Definitely. Resources are really tight.
Yeah, they really are. Okay, so then there's player pieces. There's the a player board. The back of the player board is used for the solo AI. The boards are two-sided or 2 layers, so you're gonna. It's actually a single board, and you're gonna fold it in half, and it brings
That
little sticky dots that you could put on to
that is
permanently seal
the
stuff.
best way to do two-layered boards that I've seen. I don't this needs to be normalized. The way they did two-player boards was rather than having it be printed as a two-player board and already assembled, they provided spots and sticky dots so you can easily put the sticky dots right on the indicated spots on the inside of it, and then it folds over. It causes less warping, and I'm sure it's less expensive for them, and it comes up with just such a consistent product because those sticky dots are being attached, that it just is so much easier than some of the other ones that I did. We can compare it with Oros that we had several weeks ago, where it's being attached with some clips, and the clips of these giant bulky things.
Yep.
This is such a better way of making two-layer boards. This is so good.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. If you're sticky dot challenge, you might make a little bit of a mess with them, but you know what? That's probably okay. Just throw them out. It
It
brings a
has
few
these
extras.
little tabs. It's so easy.
Yeah, yeah, but I was slightly challenged. But there's extras anyway, so you're gonna be fine. And they're just little dots of glue, so if you do mess them up, you sort of just squish them anyway, and they work fine. So anyway, there's the boards, very handy. As I said, the back is also used for the solo game. There's 5 different boards, I think, and each one
Four.
has it. No, it must be 4, yeah. And each one on the back is slightly different, but depending on what difficulty level you want to play. So if you want to play the easy bot, you'd find the one with 1 star. If you want to play the really hard one, you'd find the one with 4 stars. And then just use a different board. They're otherwise identical. Um, then there's the aliens. I mentioned that. It's not a single component. Each alien species has a board that goes with it, and a small deck of cards, a rule sheet, and then depending on the alien, there's other components, and they're going to be different for each one. I think some bring different types of counters, others bring yet a different type of counter, and so on. I think some might have brought plastic pieces. I don't remember honestly right now, but yeah, they're all different. I haven't played all the aliens yet.
No, none of them bring plastic pieces, by the way.
Okay, okay,
It's either tokens. All of them have a small deck of cards, and some of them have tokens.
yes. Okay, the next up is then the solo components. There is. Oh wait, I skipped the player. I didn't finish the player pieces. I'm sorry. The player pieces besides the board, there's a bunch of plastic tokens and markers. There's little round discs that are going to represent data, and you just put them throughout different places to mark stuff. I think it's like 30 per player or something like that. There's a little microphone to represent your publicity level,
Right,
and there's a
which we
victory
call
marker.
podcast points. It's supposed to be your
Podcast.
publicity counter, but we call it podcast points because we are who we are.
Yeah, it looks just like Julius's mic. It's exactly what it is. So okay, so there is that for the players. A lot of little plastic bits. They're all nice. They look nice, and they come in 4 different colors. So the solo components, the solo players get for the solo game, you can get objective tiles. You don't have to use those if you want to play the easier mode. They're just going to give you more ways to score, more things to plan for. There's the rival action cards. These are basically the automa. So the box brings something like 20 cards total. There's 5 basic ones that you're going to start with. So at the beginning, you only have 5 automa cards. As you play, you will add more to the deck randomly from the remaining. Plus, there's one per alien species. When you reveal one of the aliens, you will then later potentially add its automa card and replace one of the original cards. Uh, they work really well. There's a lot of information on these cards, so they're at first a little hard to figure out, but it's all in there. It's all pictographic, and once you have spent the time to learn the game, they all make sense. Um, so that's the
And
solo
I don't,
components.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any issues with all of those learning the game and things like that. All of it is really easy to be able to see and use and understand. I thought.
Yeah, yeah. I think at first, some of the icons, they don't mean anything. You got to go back and figure out what it is specifically for the solo stuff, because the solo card is mostly icon driven, unlike the rest of the game. But that was it for my list of components, Julius. Are there any others you wanted to mention?
You didn't call out necessarily quick reference sheets that each player gets. There's a quick reference
Mm-hmm.
sheet. It's almost like a mini book that lists everything you can do in the game. It is such a
Yeah.
handy quick reference sheet. It's basically just a quick summary of all of the rules. it is spot on point about being able to utilize those things.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very good. It's very clear and very thorough.
Yep. And in addition, I want to call out that everything is made, the wood components in this are made from rewood. So, for example, the publicity counter and the markers and the score counter, they may look and feel like plastic. I think maybe the data tokens are actually plastic, but the markers and publicity counters, those are made from rewood, which is sort of like press fit wood. That
Oh.
is so cool about that being used. Very efficient for ecology, things like that. And it comes out looking so nice, like
Mm-hmm.
essentially mini minis that are being created out of this. And that's great. Good stuff.
That is, yeah. I thought they were plastic. Honestly, I had no idea they were wood. They're
Yeah.
really nice. Yeah, that's pretty neat. I like the art on everything. I like the style of the art, especially like I said, the box cover. Now the first time I played, I borrowed my friendly local game store's copy. This is Boardwalk Games in Greenville. Come visit. It's a great store. Um, and it had like, I don't know, like 5 or 10 different posters in it of different art, including the cover of the box. So I guess if you bought the original edition, maybe you got that as a promo or something. I don't know. Really nice art posters, large size, larger than a sheet of paper. Nice enough that you'd be able to hang it up. Unfortunately, my version, I just bought it a few weeks ago, doesn't have those. Too bad.
Sorry, Albert.
Yep. Um, what one of the people at the game store said they want to the plastic sun is translucent. He wants to find some small little LED light that he can put in there so that the sun is shining when he's playing, which is a neat idea. Yeah. Have you, any other components, Julius? Or are we good there? I think I covered
We're good
most
for
of it.
me.
There's tokens. I didn't cover some of the like technology stuff you could get that are cardboard things on your board and victory point markers and this and that. Okay. So the theme. This is a Euro game, right? So the theme is great for me. It's about doing science and gathering data and exploring space and doing that radio telescopy and all that's really cool. I love that. But later on in the game, you start finding aliens and discovering aliens. And for me, suddenly the game theme falls apart. It turns from a science game into a science fiction game.
I think
And
it
I
always was that.
it is, I know, but the first half you don't feel any of that fiction. It's all pretty realistic science, honestly. All the cards describe stuff that's relatively realistic. So then you get to the alien part, and internally for me the theme changes. It's still fine. It's all great. I'm still enjoying the game. At that point, I'm so invested in playing it that whatever, I'll keep going, and I'm just quite content. But I do find that a little bit jarring. So I just thought that was interesting.
To me, that's kind of what I like.
Is it?
I don't know how. Yeah, to me, I think that's a cool bit for it. That it's a science fiction game that has a little bit of educational elements to it. But if it were just pure, you know, science realism, it's not going to be as cool to me as when you find these interesting aliens.
And you kind of have to find them because I mean the game is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. How lame if there isn't anything to find. So yeah, that is a theme. It's interesting. Okay, next up is the ruse, as I wrote it, or rules, as we usually do. It's a thick rule book. It's
Uh
not hard to
huh.
learn the game from it. It's pretty good. A lot of graphics and explanations. It goes through and a couple pages for the setup, then tells you about the different actions and whatnot, and a couple pages for each of the actions with lots of graphics, lots of art. It's not super dense or crowded.
I will say, I think that they must have gotten a premium on the size of the rulebook. They spared no pages for this. What would normally be a single paragraph amongst all the other paragraphs on a page, they just decided to make that a full 2-page spread. So
Yeah,
at one point in time, it is very common. It follows a regular layout for a game. Here's the overview for your turn structures, and here's all of the actions you can take on your turn, and so that it starts listing them. But when it starts listing all of the actions you take on your turn, it's a full 2-page spread for each one of them with just a huge amount of room, a huge amount of pictures, a large art generally follows from each of those. They take all the space to be able to explain those rules in great detail, and it makes for a really possibly overwhelming rulebook. I think for new players may find that overwhelming, but I saw it and I was like, wow, that's neat. Just neat how much space they're spending on each one of these. Now, fortunately, as I mentioned, they have that really short version of the rulebook with player reference cards. But otherwise, this is a feels like a gigantic rulebook because they just decided to expand out everything to absolutely the next level.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. It's got all the rules, and then it, like a normal game, has the solo rules at the end. Here's what you change to play solo, and here's how it works. I learned the game to play the first time by playing it solo, actually. Um,
Hmm.
as much as I complain about it, but it worked pretty well. It took me a while. The first game was really slow. I just started reading the rules and jumped in immediately. Normally for a game like this, you'd want to read the rules first and then go back and set it up with the rules as a reference and all that. And because I was borrowing the store's copy, I didn't have that leisure. In fact, that first game I didn't get to finish it. It took me about 3 hours, and eventually I said, "Well, it's time to go." But I've gotten a really good feel for it for the next time. The one thing about the rulebook that I find odd is that the size of it is slightly smaller than the box. It's like an inch shorter and an inch narrower. The compulsive in me kind of wants it to fit perfectly. I don't know. I don't know if they do that so that it's easier to grab or what, but I do find that odd. Yeah, slightly odd. Not really. That I don't
I
really
don't know.
care. But yeah. Okay. So that's the rules. Then I guess next we get into the gameplay of the game.
Sure.
There's a lot here, right? I don't always like going through everything, but whatever. Let's start with the setup though, just to have a good context. Well, first off, the goal of the game is to get as many points as possible, right? There's multiple ways to do that, and you're going to be getting points every round, pretty much. Pretty often, especially in the later rounds. The first rounds it might be a little bit slow, but even then you'll start getting points. Um, okay, so the board is divided into three areas, right? There's a solar system in the center. That's we talked about that already. Some in the ring and the planets that orbit it. There's the ring around the solar system that's going to be used for radial telescopy. Telescopy. I don't know how you pronounce that. Telescopy. Um, so the planets in the center, you're gonna actually send probes out into them. You're gonna get your little probes, and they're gonna move around the board when you move them, and end up in a different planet, and you'll be able to do science there. The sector ring around that is for the radial telescopy. That's a different type of action. There's another
Why
board that
didn't you just
has
call it scanning? Why are you
ah
not
yeah, I
using the
guess you
simpler terms that the game uses instead
ah.
of trying to use advanced language that you don't even know how to pronounce?
All right, listener, go back and wherever you heard me say that radial tell us something, change it to scan. Thank you. Um, so there's a planet section that has pictures for each of the planet. When you've traveled on the main board to a planet, you can now land on it or orbit it. You will move your counter over to that planet at that point to mark that you visited there. There's different things, information on there, victory points you could get, and other things you could get for doing that. Next to that is where you're going to place the alien boards. It tracks points and what has been discovered for each alien. Once you discover everything, there's three types of things you got to discover once you've done all of them. That alien is fully discovered. You flip them over, you find out who they are and what effects they have. Then on the other end of the solar system and the other end of the board, there's an area for 15 different technology tiles. These are tiles you could buy. They're going to make you a little more powerful and give you some advantages and more victory points. And then there's the publicity track where you can move your little microphone up and down, your podcasting track, as Julius calls it. So that is generally the layout of the board. Each round, you're gonna start the round. You're gonna gain some resources, including cards. And there's a couple different types of resources. And then starting with whoever's the first player, each person's gonna take one action and keep going around the board until everybody has passed. And that's pretty much the game until the end. when the round ends, you'll gain some cards. You'll tug a card under your stack of action reference card, and then the next round begins where you again get your resources and start over. The That's where my notes ended because we were traveling for Thanksgiving and never had a chance to do all my full notes. So now I'm going to reference the handy little rule sheet. There, there's like 6, 7 different actions. One of them is play a card. You're going to play one of the cards that you have in your hand, pay its cost, and do whatever thing it says in the middle. Generally, they're powerful. They're more powerful than taking an action. Sometimes they're actions you want to take anyway, but at a lower cost, or they do more than you had planned to do, or whatever. So they're handy things to do. Some of the cards you will play and discard. Others you'll play and keep in front of you because they have missions on them. When you accomplish those missions, you'll get points. The missions vary. They could be something like visit Jupiter. If you visit Jupiter, you consider that done, or travel through an asteroid or other stuff. So that's the first action. That costs money, credits. The second action would be to launch a probe from Earth. If you do that, you spend some money. You put a little probe marker. It looks like a little, like a yeah, like a space probe, one of those early space probes. You put it on Earth, and then after that, you could move it around the board towards a planet, another planet. You could, if you have launched a probe and got into another planet, you could. The next action is orbit. You could take your probe and put it on the planetary section of the board on the appropriate planet, gain some points, gain some resources, gain whatever you're gaining, and that probe is now done and it sits there or forever orbiting. The next action is land. Instead of orbiting, you could choose to land on the planet. If you have a already an orbiter, landing is cheaper. Landing is one of the ways you unlock aliens and make and reveal who they are. Um, the next action is scanning. You could scan deep space by pointing your telescopes out into different sectors. There's different ways to do that. You generally you do it on wherever whichever sector Earth is on that board. You're gonna do that region, and you could choose other regions based on a few cards that are available always on the table that give you different sector colors. Scanning will get you data resources that you're going to put on your player board, and that's another way also to unlock the aliens. If you do enough scanning in a single sector, you potentially reveal alien life there, and then you mark it on the alien board. Oh, goodness. The next action is analyze data. When you've gotten enough data, mainly from scanning, you can now spend that data and again use it to reveal the alien. It's a third way you reveal aliens. If you have done all three of those in a single alien species, you get to flip over that board and read the rules for that alien, and it changes the game going forward. Changes it somewhat. And after that, the other action is research a technology. To do that, you spend your publicity. As you're playing, you gain publicity for doing different things. And it's a track that just goes up and down. If your publicity marker, your microphone is at 6 or higher, you could spend 6 of those publicity points and gain a technology which will make you better at something, either scanning, analyzing data, or launching probes. And finally, the last action is pass. If you choose to pass, you can discard down to 4. You're going to then take the cards that are available for the end of round, choose one to keep and put the rest back, and then rotate the planetary ring. The rotating is neat. The first person that does a rotate each round will rotate the upper ring, so the planets near the core. The second person will rotate the middle ring, which will, because the first ring is resting on it, will end up rotating both the middle planets and the inner planets. And then the third time person rotates, all of the planets get rotated, which is why I was saying earlier that the inner planets move around the sun faster than the outer ones. Gosh, that's all the actions.
So let's start talking about them.
And there's lots that I left out. Yeah. And that's the actions. When everybody's passed, the round ends, you keep going. You do this 5 times. The game ends, you compare points. So now.
Right. So let's talk about some of these things.
Yes.
First of all, I got to mention about playing a card. Playing a card has a lot of variety to it. One of my favorite things is the dual use cards system. And this one highly makes up for dual use cards. Those cards, first of all, they can commonly be used when you're scanning because each one of them has a small icon on the top right. That when you scan, especially if you have the upgrade, you can discard a card from your hand or you discard a card that's available from the card row to be able to trigger a scan at that location. This helps also cycle through cards in the card row or deny cards from the players. So that card row is never going to be stagnant. Many other games where stuff is getting bought from the card row, stuff will stay there the whole game. This one, because you're constantly using that for one of the other uses and you're using it from the other uses straight off the card row, that those cards cycle through really fast. Each card also has the ability to be used for a free action. You can discard from the top for the stuff in the top left for a very small little boost, but that's helpful if you just need a small little thing done. Or they can, at one point in time, you'll be able to use them to upgrade your income. The dual use cards, and then there's the main thing, whatever the main big purpose of
Mm-hmm.
the card is. The whole dual use card effect for all of this, that's so prime for me. I really like dual use, and it is excellently implemented here when they do all those stuff with those cards.
Mm-hmm. And Julius is shortchanging when he says dual use. They're multi-use. There's like four different ways you could use each card, really.
Yeah, multi-use cards, correct. Yes, multi-use cards is generally a big winner for many games. And this
Yep.
one makes great use for that. Setting aside the cards, because the cards are typically being used to fuel other things. So the cards are sort of like bonusing and doing one of two other things better. It feels to me like there's two basic ways that you get points out of the game. Set of actions, I suppose, that you get points out of the game. You can either be scanning and looking for signs of alien life around the universe by doing the whole scanning and getting data, and then finding, filling out a whole computer with the data, and then using the whole computer to make a sign of life, or by sending out your probes to land or orbit other planets and get data and points those way. And to me, it very much feels like there's that two tracks that you're going to go on. And I think that you
Mhm.
probably want to be doing them. Maybe you start by focusing on one and then sort of diversify a little bit, because quite often you'll have an opportunity to just do a little bit of the other one and be able to get a couple extra points or a couple extra actions and the other one and do some stuff. Um, there's other bonus points you get also throughout the game. Some of the cards have bonus points, like if you fulfill a certain objective, you get a bonus point. Some of the aliens give you some bonus points. There's milestones that give you some additional bonus points, but it felt to me like there's those two tracks. I've heard a lot of discussions about which of those two tracks really gets you more points. And I know that the first time I played it, I thought the scanning sounds fun and interesting. It's sort of like an area majority type action you're taking, where you're trying to grab area majority for a certain star. And then when you get majority, you can cash that in for some additional signs of life and use that to fuel aliens. But for area majority really to work, you often want to have other players getting into it. The fact that it requires a lot of interactions with other players sometimes means that most of the other players want to do that. That isn't as much fun, I felt like. Just doing it all by yourself is not nearly as much fun as going off and landing on other planets. And in addition, going off on other planets, you look at the board and you see some of these are worth 10, 20 points. When you land on
Mm-hmm.
something and you get all the stuff for it, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do that. You have to go upgrade your landers. You have to go make sure you can land on moons. You have to go and explore there. You spend all the energy to actually get all the way out there and all the energy to actually land. And you can maybe discount it by getting orbiting first. There's a lot of steps to be able to get those big 20, 30 point layouts, but seeing things like, hey, you get 20 points by doing that is awfully attractive. And so very often people look at those big payouts and say, hey, a big payout is a lot more fun than a small payout over time. Even if I were to tell you that, hey, it is guaranteed that both of them will give you 30 points. getting those 30 points all at once in 10 actions versus getting those 30 points at 3 points per action, most people will be more attracted to the get 30 points all at once type action. And when the other one feels like it's more fun when there's more interaction, I don't know. I've continued to do scan, but I found that many other players don't scan as much as I do, even though I'm getting similar points to them.
Hmm.
Just haven't seen it.
Yeah, that landing on the planets for the big points is hard because it also depends, where the planets are, how they're aligned. If the big points come from the really big outer planets, that third ring, and if they're
Mm-hmm.
on the opposite side of the solar system, you're going to spend a whole lot of energy to get there. And if you could time it so that they're close to your planet, you could get a probe out there. Two, maybe, I guess, if you really work hard at that and focus on just that for that turn. But those rings are going to keep moving and they're not going to stay aligned very long. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a short time that you have for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think it's easier. I don't think it's game winning to do one or the other. I don't think that there's any sort of balance to it. But I do find it interesting how much more compelling it's been for people that I've
Mm.
seen to do one over the other.
Yep. But both are necessary because you got to do both to unlock an alien. If you only do, like, if everybody just does scanning and nobody ever sends a probe out, then you'll never discover the aliens.
Well,
It'll
that's
be
only true when
impossible,
you're playing
and
in
vice
four
versa.
player. If you're playing in 3, 2, or 1 player, there are some bot tokens that will
Hmm.
come out at certain score times, and those bot tokens are going to fill up those last few slots you have on aliens so that the
Hmm.
aliens will get revealed. So at the very least, the aliens will, unless you're playing 4 player, in which case, yeah, granted, but I don't. I can't remember the last time I played this 4 player, if ever. So at least those bot tokens come and fill things out.
Okay. When I played it the first time, I totally ignored those. I didn't know how to use them, and then I forgot about them the next two games. So I haven't taken advantage of that. But
That's a
playing
real shame.
solo, playing solo was never really a problem because the aliens still came out. Now, in my two-player game, because we weren't using those, it took a while for the aliens to come out, and only one of the aliens ever came out.
Yeah, you have severely hurt yourself by doing that because in 2 players,
Yep.
4 bot tokens are supposed to come out. Those immediately start pushing the game because I will say
Yeah.
the game freshens up when those aliens come out. It really starts to accelerate. Those alien cards have different unique dynamics, are much more powerful than other things you do. Very much are something to push towards getting. They have a lot of incentive to do stuff with them. So the fact that they're not coming out, that slows down the game a whole lot. I know that with similar to terraforming Mars, and terraforming Mars, if you don't get the if you don't get started similar to terraforming Mars, you just don't get started fast. This one, the first round or so, you're like, I can do like 2 or 3 things, and then that's it. I can't do a whole lot, and the first round's just done. And it feels like it's taken 5 minutes and I've not been productive. When you get those aliens to come out, everything starts churning. So to hear that you missed out on that opportunity really feels like a loss for you. You really want that. And I know there was an expansion for Terraforming Mars, and another expansion coming out with this that gets you to a point in time that the game has already felt like it's taken off, which it is good to
Mm-hmm.
have.
Yeah, there's a new expansion coming out soon. Like, I think this month, maybe even.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
haven't
already
seen it
released in
yet.
Europe.
Is it? Okay? Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I know it's supposed to be out. Yeah, gosh, it's a fun game. I love the doing all the different science in it, and just
Mm-hmm.
the variety. I don't like the idea of focusing on one. And maybe it'll weaken my game, but that's fine. I'm having fun playing anyway. In the
Oh
end, it
yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much I get beat by, which is a lot, by the way.
Well, when you're playing solo, it definitely doesn't matter.
Yeah. Should we talk about the solo game then? Since you mentioned that.
Sure, but one more thing before we do that, I just want to talk about the aliens. Um, the aliens to me are really fun, really dynamic. They do different things between the 5 of them. Each of them feel very different, and you get 2 per game. I highly recommend that if you're playing the game for the first time, like don't read all of the stuff of the aliens. Just be surprised as they come out.
Mhm.
It really is such a fun discovery when those come to see what they work and how it is that they do and how to use those well. they're just really cool. It's
Hmm.
very neat when they come out. They're so different. I really like the aliens. I'm very excited to see more of them coming from the expansion.
Yeah, I think Julie says a good point there. Don't spoil the fun by finding out what they're like. Just just play the game the first time when you reveal the alien. It has a little rule sheet. One side kind of tells you a little bit about it in terms of like flavor and whatnot, and then the rest of it is all how you play it. So just wait till you've discovered one and then learn about them. I think that's probably a more fun way to do it. Unfortunately, that kind of fun doesn't last forever because once you've done the alien a couple of times, then it's all familiar,
Which I
and it's
have.
just a game. Yeah. So this game reminds me of a couple other games. One of them, it reminds me of Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Same design team.
Same design team. It feels really similar. It's not the same mechanically and all that, but it does feel similar with all these different types of things going on. And the solo automa feels similar too, and it's very simple and works well. So it reminded me a lot of that game. It also reminds me a lot of Space Corp 2300 from GMT games, which you're also like exploring the solar system and going out into space and discovering aliens. It's different in that the point is not doing science to go to space. It's about traveling into space and exploring the different planets and getting out into them and even exploiting them. But thematically, it's very similar, and it also works kind of similar with the cards. In each turn, you're taking turns playing a card and doing its action until you can't do any more stuff, and then you pass. So surprisingly similar. That one is probably a little drier and a little slower than this one. But this one's more dynamic and more fun. I think it's the Space Corp is made by a war game company. This is not a Euro game company, so that's what they feel like. All right, solo. Since it's a
Let's
solo
go for it.
podcast, okay. So so there's I mentioned earlier there's a deck of Automa cards. At the start of the game, you're going to have five of them only. And there's a solo board that has different difficulty depending on which one you choose. On the solo board, there's a ring of spaces. We didn't really talk about the technology that you get when you do publicity, but when you get a technology tile, you put it on your board and it's going to give you benefits for the rest of the game. The solo AI will, instead of gaining those tiles and using them the same way a human does, will will move a mark on a ring, and sometimes the solo card will tell it, "Oh, gain a technology tile," and it just arbitrarily takes one depending where it is on the ring. When you go fully around the ring, that's going to unlock another card for your deck. So the Automa deck is five cards. You're going to shuffle them up, and you're going to take turns with the Automa. You'll go, then the Automa will go to flip a card and look at the list of actions from the top down and do the first one that it can do fully. And then if it can't do the first one, try the second one. If you can't do that one, do the third, and so on. If you can't do any of them, lucky you, the Automa didn't do anything this time. Once once you've gone and it's done all its five cards, it can't do anything else and it will pass. If you still have actions available, you get to do more by yourself. If you've already stopped, then the round's over. As that ring, as the when you go around that ring that I mentioned, and you add a new card to the Automa deck, you place that card on top of the Automa deck. So starting that round, it's getting one more turn each round, one more turn than the player or than before. So as it plays, it also starts advancing and getting more powerful and doing more, just like you. And I think that's really neat. I like how it does that, gradually adding those cards little by little. And like I said, there's 15 of those, 10 or 15 of those cards, and you're going to add them randomly. So each game will feel different because it has different actions available. Each of those cards are very different. And besides that, I also mentioned the aliens will each have five different Automa cards that you add into that deck also. So it is super neat. I like how that Automa works. Super simple. Reveal that card, choose the action, possibly move stuff around on its board, probably gain some resources or victory points. Really victory points. Automa doesn't get resources. And then you go again. So that solo game is very, very quick. The Automa moves very quickly. It doesn't feel like a whole extra player.
What do you feel about the objectives?
I hadn't used those yet either. I had not gotten to play this game as much as I'd hoped to before this week because, again, because of all that traveling we did. So I have not. I've played twice solo, and I should add the objectives. I know we'll do that next time for sure.
Okay. Yeah, the solo using those objectives using the different scaling difficulties, um, similar to before, it keeps things moving, but also keeps things different. You can't really stick with the same type of gameplay you want. So, for example, I mentioned that I like scanning. So, first of all, the solo interacts with me for scanning, so that means that scanning's fun. But also, the fact that there's different objectives coming out means that you have to do some different things to be able to move in different ways and at least dabble and other sorts of stuff. It doesn't quite push you all the way towards the end. It just means that you have to sometimes dabble to be able to succeed in some of those objectives. But yeah, it
Hmm.
works.
Yeah, this is a neat game. I really like this. It's a nice big game and a lot of fun. And it makes me also want to go back and play Lost Ruins of Arnak again, which I haven't played in a while. That's another fun game.
Yeah. We'll have to review that once I finish the campaign. I know we've been working on it for a
Oh,
long time now.
you started playing. You started playing. Okay, I have not played the campaign. I got the expansion and I got the big box. I haven't yet pulled them out, so I'll have to do that again.
Best of luck to you on it.
That is a neat game. Yep. So anyway, that is SETI. It's a big game. I don't know if there's anything else we need to mention about it, but I'm sure we could keep talking if we want to.
No, I think we're just about landed this probe.
All right then. Well, until next time, all will be revealed.
Have a good night, all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. We love feedback, so we love hearing from you. You can reach me at julius@oneplayerpodcast.com or jailbird on BGG, and Albert can be reached at albert@oneplayerpodcast.com or Fractalute on BGG. Our website is oneplayerpodcast.com with the number 1, and we're also on Twitter at oneplayerpodcast. The intro music is copyright Angus, can be found at jamendo.com. The transition music is copyright by Dan Elduce Pancaldi, whose page is at donpancaldi.com. The One Player Podcast is protected under a Creative Commons share-alike license. Thanks for listening.